Welcome to SOapbox, the official podcast from Spencer Ogden. In this series, titled Voices of the Energy Transition, we explore the major forces reshaping the global energy industry. Each quarter, we'll tackle one key theme across talent, ESG, financing, and innovation. Hosted by our team members in Australia, New York, London, Malaysia, and beyond, SOapbox delivers regional insights and expert perspectives to help you stay ahead in the energy transition.
Welcome, everybody, to the first installment of Spencer Ogden's Soapbox podcast in 2025. I'm joined here by Adam Gifford, Merinda, Harvey, and Manjeet Hooda, who I will allow to provide a brief introduction on themselves before we get stuck in. Really looking forward to this one. We've got an all-star cast, Merinda being in Stockholm as we undergo this one. But maybe I'll hand it over to Merinda to introduce herself and the gentleman afterwards.
Yes. Phoning in from Stockholm. It's a little bit wintry today, but that's okay. Hopefully the rain holds off. But just to introduce myself, Merinda Harvey, currently with OX2 Australia as the people and culture business partner there. So I've been in the team about 2 years now. I like to tell people that I kind of fell into renewables a little bit. I'd previously been in mining and also sort of working for Australia Post previously, and got the opportunity to move into a short-term position with OX2, and 2 years later I'm here. But I really enjoy the role, enjoy being part of the industry as well. So I think it's it's a good time to be in renewables, and there's a lot happening.
Fantastic. Yep. Absolutely, there is. And we are glad to have you joining globally, our dear friend Merinda. Maybe I'll hand it over to Adam to introduce himself and his role at Potentia Energy.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you having me. I'm Adam. I joined Potentia Energy a bit over 3 years ago, and been in the head of engineering role for coming up on 2 years. But before that, reformed tradesman, got into working for network utilities in South Australia, technical and commercial roles, but also worked for engineering consultancies, managing a lot of design and being the eyes and ears of clients out on site. So I like to think that I can get out there and build some things and we see what looks good and what doesn't. But looking forward to a good chat tonight.
Absolutely. And then we've got Manjeet Hooda of Envision Energy. Manjeet, former Sterling Wilson and Solar and Transgrid. Manjeet, if you'd like to provide a bit of an introduction on yourself and your role over there at Envision.
Thanks for having me, first of all. Engineer by trade. So it started, my career with design and then later on field engineering assignments. Obviously, for the sins that I've done in oil and gas, I spent most of my career with ExxonMobil projects all around the world. But last 5 or 6 years, I've been into clean energy, renewable sort of space, worked on EPC side, and then on developer side with Lumia and Transgrid. And then just joined Envision Energy a couple of months ago as senior director and head of projects. So now we're acting as a technology partner.
Well, it is fantastic to have all three of you here. Now that we've gotten out of the formalities of the introductions, let's get stuck straight into it. I was thinking about this discussion, obviously, beforehand, because we set it up, so I need to be thinking about it. But in relation to the skill sets that are the highest demand in the renewable energy industry in Australia, you've got an industry that's popped up in the last decade with skill sets that have needed to be brought over from overseas or migrated from other industries. Now, what we're seeing on our side from a recruitment perspective is a very high demand for BOP, grid connection engineering skill sets across the domain that just simply aren't there. Maybe a question for Adam, being in the engineering side, on the developer side, which of those skill sets are you seeing as the most critical that are the hardest to find for your team or for people that you know in the industry who are in a similar position to you? What do you think right now is the hardest to find? Is it grid connection? What are your thoughts?
So for us, internally, our engineering capabilities kind of split between the grid and approvals team and the engineering team, which I look after. So main difference is grid and approvals team kind of look after anything that's got a permit attached to it. And we kind of pick up the balance and Also do a lot of the technical project management. So our project engineers are getting their hands dirty and trying to help bring projects to FID, put all the pieces in order, and help our development team kind of put the meat on the bones of the project. One thing that I'm really seeing is hard to come by is those engineers, project managers, people that understand how the different pieces fit together and have experience in getting a project from A to B. And that could be either with the same company or various different project engagements that they've been on. But those that have got well-rounded experience and have got some sort of practical element from being out on site, either working for a construction company or a technology partner, getting enough breadth of knowledge as well as having technical depth, that combination's kind of elusive. It's something that we really look for. I know it's something that I find really helps get projects moving along, and it's always good to work with people who know what they're doing. They just makes everything move a bit more smoothly. But yeah, that combo is really hard to find.
That's an interesting comment. So you would say maybe it's not necessarily the discipline itself that makes it particularly difficult, that constitutes a particularly difficult search. It's more so having the constructability and somebody who's well aware of what's actually going out, somebody practical enough in that domain. Manjeet, would you agree with that? Is that something that you've faced building up project construction teams? Is that a similar sort of thing on your end?
I think the real experience from the ground or boots on the ground, it's sort of it's mandatory from that regard. And to be honest, I think just to set the background, right? So a lot of people they think that renewable industry is not highly technical, but I think when they compare with petrochemical complexes and deep sea exploration and things like that, but it's not the case. I mean, there are very high technical engineers that are required, obviously from grid, and then when it comes to HV infrastructure. There's a lot of engineering that goes in the background. OEM is one part, but then the integrating the whole project and then connecting it to the NEM, it's like completely different levels. So there are very specific trades that are required, engineering level, and then at delivery level, and then at commissioning level, just to the entire supply chain.
It's really interesting. From the perspective of maybe growing that, then, I mean, it's obviously you need good leadership to facilitate the development of these people so that they can actually get that level of exposure. The difficult thing that you get with that is with the projects being in different locations, having people who are willing to travel in the same way that getting that level of site exposure that you would in a rail infrastructure project where they're driving half an hour to a pre-start as opposed to having to fly in, fly out. It's a very different circumstance, and I can imagine that plays into the speed that these teams can sort of develop. Manjeet, on that topic, with remote sites and FIFO rosters becoming the norm, what practical strategies do you think would make those roles more attractive? What could engineering and HR do to make them even easier to fill to get those teams? I mean, you're building out these kinds of construction teams and construction capabilities. Maybe that could be something that Merinda might weigh in on. But is that something that particularly with what you did at Sterling and Wilson, Manjeet? And then maybe Merinda might have something from an uplift and from a justification around being out there on site perspective. I can imagine. Thoughts in general, guys?
Yeah, so I think just to address the whole thing from a manforce or workforce point of view, is like definitely I look to people like Adam, right? Can you modularize things? Can I finish most of the equipments in factory, or the I mean, definitely I think that modularization is success in oil and gas industry and other industries. So where you just lift the entire sort of substation onto a barge and commission it once you put it on at site level. So definitely there so things which we can do at engineering level from that point of view, and then things that you can do remotely, so avoid as much as you can for putting a lot of people at risk when you go to a live site. But then obviously, you need people to build things, and then you need people to commission things, and then you need people to operate things, right? So that will come. Now, I think there's a lot of from different industries we can take learnings. I think roster, fly in, fly out things is a that has been there from ages, right? You can make those attractive as much as you can, but then there's a cost to it as well from a delivery point of view, right? So you have to hit the sort of sweet spot between an APC pricing, that how much rosters he can give you, 4 and 4, 6 and 3, 2 and 1. But then at the same time, looking at the mental health of the workforce, because I mean, those are long days, right? At site, I mean, you start your day at like 4:30 in the morning, like next 11 hours at site, right? So I think you have to check both aspects of it, so that people get attracted to that, and then make the journey comfortable, right? So again, some companies they allow youths. Some companies, depending on the project site, how far regional the project site is, try to attract the traveling aspect of it.
Agreed. And I suppose that would also play into the construction teams and those HR teams working together to be able to set up those effective retention strategies. I'm sure Merinda's got lots of experience in that domain, and recent stuff that you were telling me offline too about making that employee value proposition even better for those staff. What are your thoughts on that one, Merinda?
We are living in the trenches of this one at the moment, I must say. It's very much a hot topic for us. We're actively resourcing up delivery teams on site, and trying to navigate the rostering and site-based arrangements and what that looks like. So I think for us, there's probably been a few key things that we've done, particularly throughout recruitment and getting people onto the team. So I think, being upfront and honest about our expectations initially of what we would like to see with people on site, and working from home or working from the office in different locations. So I think being upfront about that, but then also having a level of flexibility, because people have personal commitments, families, they may be traveling, you don't know. So being able to come to a mutual arrangement in terms of the roster in the early conversations, I think, is really important. And then as part of that, around how we can facilitate that, you talk about, vehicles and stuff like that, Manjeet. So it's about, how we can make that a little bit easier for people to travel in, travel out. We've also done quite a bit of work recently on, remote location work and incentives, for out-of-pocket expenses and living away from home, essentially. So I think, you do have to recognise that these people are working away from home locations. So there needs to be a level of incentive there for them to spend that time away from home. And even little things like we've been trying to do, sessions for the team in the office. We'll try and incorporate the guys on site. We had something the other day, we had some skin checks for the team in the office as a sort of health benefit. So we've already spoken to the guys on our side about trying to get that facilitated for them in that location, so they can not feel like they're missing out on anything. So, it's just part of that whole picture.
I think one thing I forgot is, like, definitely I think that the way it sort of worked for us is the camp amenities that you provide at really remote locations, so what better food, right? So rooms is a big topic, gyms and Wi-Fi and basic things that you can improve from that point of view, that increases the satisfaction and help the retention of the workforce, is also, I think, is a good thing to work on.
Adam, you're smiling there. I think have you anything in particular that's come to mind on that topic?
Yeah, definitely a few things ringing true there, right? Like FIFO it's a tough life.
Yeah.
Right? There's definitely an element of personal sacrifice, like for the workers and also their families. And usually they get compensated pretty well, and which is it's a decision that multiple people make together, right? It's not just the individual going on site. It's the other people that get left at home.
Hmm.
But amenities and incentives and other little extras sort of take the edge off and make the whole package a bit more palatable. But I say that even extends to those that are in the office, right? Like there's got to be a point of difference about projects or location that you work from or flexibility in the office. Ultimately, for me, like a lot of the people that I'm talking to, they could get a job at multiple places, right? But what they want to understand is what makes Potentia different, right? What's the unique elements that your firm can offer rather than the other company down the street.
Yeah. A point of difference. I think that's what you are.
Absolutely agree with you guys, because I think you've got an element of maybe we are, because the skill sets that we're pulling in to our projects are coming from maybe local skill, transport infrastructure, for example, is one area where the skill sets tend to translate well. I've seen multiple project directors go from transport into renewable energy, for argument's sake. There's an element that says there, okay, well, we can upgrade the amenities. We can upgrade the quality of life that they get there when they're on their 10 days on versus their 10 days or their 4 days off. Sorry, but I've also seen clients succeed at relocating people fully. So then there's a counter argument potentially around, well, there are projects that are going on for 2 years that are battery sites out in the middle of nowhere in Australia that need to be built. And instead of running rosters, this particular organization may relocate somebody with their partner to a townhouse near the site, which may be practical for that particular project. So maybe it is a game of what Adam was saying about really making that employee value proposition, or understanding what it's like to particularly work with that organization against the one across the street. But like, what is the greatest contributor to somebody picking a role over another when there is such a skills short market is food for thought. If anybody has any input on that, that'd be really interesting.
I was going to say that we have moved people for projects. I moved to Mildura for 9 months when I got into renewables, and I was commuting an hour and a bit each way to site every day. But
wow,
ultimately, it's for me. I found it was a total package, right? Like I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed really getting into it, getting my hands dirty, immersing myself in it. And I know that that's something that was, compelling for, the person who was working with us that went out to site. So it was a chance for them and their family to go and really embrace that rural lifestyle. They loved it.
Really interesting. Maybe something for Merinda specifically when it comes to that retention piece. Is there anything that you guys have implemented or that you've seen recently that's really made a difference? We talk about attracting the staff to a particular project and selling against another organization and making sure that, your 3 organizations in this space are the ones that are attracting the best talent. That's what we want to be doing. In terms of keeping staff and retaining them and keeping them engaged, I know everybody here is fantastic at building teams in their particular discipline. Merinda, what are you seeing move the needle specifically when it comes to that retention element? Is there any dominant thing in that space that's keeping staff in the organization?
I think for us, we've been on a bit of a journey the last couple of years with, Ox2 entering the market and growing over that time. For us, it's really been about selling the business as what we are, what we're doing, our pipeline of projects, showing people that there is the opportunity to work on different projects in the coming years. And that pipeline is it's strong and we're constantly looking at new opportunities. So I think that's a big thing. I think for us, culture's definitely played into it a lot, and just culture is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but definitely having that environment, not just in the office, on sites as well, where people can come, it's busy, they can get their job done, but we can also have a bit of fun. We've got, as I mentioned, skin checks or different things that we're doing in the office to try and bring people in. I mean, reality is we're still very much in this hybrid working environment. So we've got people that are working from home in the office, but I think we do see the value when people are all in the office together. People really enjoy working from home as well, because that's kind of their days they zero in and get their stuff done, which I like to do that myself. So I think, that culture piece, when people are in the office, they're there to connect and work together and workshops, meetings, whatever it is. But Yeah, I think they're probably the big things for us. We've definitely had to sort of sell those things to bring people on board.
Well, they definitely keep the staff. I mean, I know that Adam has seen some success in his engineering team as well from having that kind of collaborative culture, and in an organization that has managed to do it across multiple cities as well. Something that you might be able to speak to, Adam, because you're sitting in Adelaide full time,
I am.
right? And a lot of your engineering team is not in Adelaide. So tell me how that actually shapes up when it comes to the development of those staff. How are you managing such a highly technical discipline within such a successful organization, with all those staff in different locations? How does it all play in?
None of my team are in Adelaide apart from me.
There you go. I thought so there.
Half of our team is half of my team is in Sydney. Most of the broader Potentia team is there. But we've also got quite a number in Melbourne, and very shortly I have a few more in Brisbane as well. So
Awesome.
spread out, but it's not easy. So for me, like, what I'm really trying to focus on is ensuring that I'm spending enough time with each of the team members. I've got some who are more experienced and some that are less experienced, but FaceTime is really important, right? Like, I'm really conscious of the fact that we work with people, right? Yes, they know stuff about things and they know how to try and organize a few drawings and wires and build some stuff, but at the end of the day, they're really interested in growing and being successful in their role, and just really enjoying what they do, providing guidance about what's the most successful way to do that within the firm and within the industry, and helping them work through challenges that they're facing on projects. Just really trying to have that opportunity to spend time with them and really impart some of the weird things that I've seen throughout my time. That's something that I make a point of. Seems to be going okay.
Do you find there's a bit of flying involved in that? I know Manjeet's obviously building a team. Maybe there's some input in that respect too. Like, there would be a lot of travel that would be required in that domain. But then again, the projects are also in different locations as well. So that's parallel to that fact too. Like, building those regional teams might actually support from a project perspective, considering everyone's got a project in Queensland and New South Wales and Victoria at the same time. Thoughts, Manjeet? Has that been something that you've come up with, building out teams both Envision but also with Lumia, Transgrid, and at Sterling and Wilson?
Yeah, it goes back to the talent pool, and it's a very limited talent pool, and so you have to obviously be mindful of that. And then I think then how you structure that talent pool, and obviously how can you make the collaborative ways of doing things. I think that's another layer that comes into it, and that's what Adam was explaining. So I think we have another layer as OEM, as Envision Energy, because I think we then obviously local opportunities, but then we are international, so we support the international functions as well. And then my role is like then working very closely with Shanghai in that regard, and then supporting the broader regions. So that is another layer that we have to work through. But I think in this age, 21st century, I think everyone is like used to work in that sort of regard, where you have matrix organization and hybrid projects, and there's a bit of onshore and offshore involved. So I think people have come to terms on that, and they know exactly. And I think the other thing that is very important on this one is, like, people need some sort of autonomy in whatever role they're doing, right? So the micromanagement part is long gone from a leadership point of view, right? So I don't want to micromanage anyone, right? So they know exactly what they're building on, where they're sort of creating. They are the experts in their domain. I need to give them that sort of autonomy, and then come back with the results, or when they need help, or when they need guidance. So I think that is really important in that aspect.
That's a really interesting point. So essentially, from that perspective, maybe the hybrid nature of organizations, or the multi-office teams in that respect, actually facilitates people's development if you can do it right. Maybe there's an element of the autonomy playing into a quicker development if you're able to keep that face time and contact time that Adam was talking about. Manjeet, you touched on something that I think would be a good segue to another topic within this that I wanted to cover, which, get your insights on, guys, as a collective. International skill sets and mobility. If you're looking at oil and gas as an industry or other domains, I know when I was working in the transport infrastructure sector, we were looking at a major campaign to bring signalling engineers over from the UK, because there's obviously such a large skill set over there and a few months of upskilling here, and they know the Australian market. Which of any of the engineering disciplines or any domain in particular, if anyone's got any ideas in this domain, is there any particular discipline where an international can jump in straight away and add a lot of value without knowing the Australian standards, or potentially offer something more than what we've got locally? Thoughts, Adam?
But the tricky thing with the Australian market is that it's quite regulated, particularly in certain jurisdictions like Queensland and Victoria, where you've got mandatory engineering registration. In terms of building projects and designing them, a lot of it's transferable, right? Utility solar and wind, they all reference IEC standards, right? Which are consistent, globally. Where they differ is in just the local regulatory requirements, and that's around things like calculation sign-offs, verification, little things in AS3000 for wiring codes, that kind of thing. Engineers Australia are pretty pro movement of engineering talent globally. There's a lot of mutual recognition internationally, but there's still some hurdles that they need to go through once they do actually get here. But a lot of doing the work is fine. So if they've got someone that they can work with that can help cover off that part, no problem.
It's really interesting. Even outside of engineering. Oh, go on, Manjeet. Yeah, I just wanted to keep going.
The numbers are scary. Someone shared on my LinkedIn how many engineers that we need as an industry by 2030 to meet the 82% renewable energy targets. And I think different organizations portray different numbers, but whatever numbers you pick and choose, they're all scary. So Engineers Australia, I think they're forecasting around 60,000 engineers required by 2030. Now, how many graduates will we produce as a nation? I think it's roughly 8 to 9%, and we are in the bottom half of the OECD nations, right? That many engineers that we produce in that country. So definitely, I think we have to look beyond our country, right? So what we can do to address that part of the equation, and I think that's where the migration comes in. I think Merinda can talk about more of the topic, like what policy need to bring that, and attract the talent, because like every country is going for these kind of projects, right? So every country need that kind of talent, right? So every country need grid connection engineers, every country need those structural engineers, whatever that may be, So how we can then attract the talent here in Australia, I think that's where policies and regulations they all come in together.
What are your thoughts, Merinda, on that topic? We talk about engineering a lot, but that's also not the only talent skill set that is short in the local market. And we've seen, organizations like Ox2 succeed when it comes to bringing staff over from head office, from European established markets in the renewable energy industry. What are your thoughts? Is that something that you've seen at Ox2?
Yeah, we've done it with a couple of key positions, and for us, we've found real benefit because obviously with headquarters over here in Stockholm, it gives us a direct link back if we've got someone from Sweden who's in our office for a 12, 18-month period. So we find a lot of value out of having that individual working with us. Mobility is such an interesting one, and we've been having a lot of discussions about it internally. I've been in mining, so I've seen very nice relocation packages of people, not only domestically, but internationally. And we're not quite at that level yet, but, the broader discussion around the engineering numbers, for instance, we have to start thinking about how we can get more people in. And it is obviously costly for businesses. There's a significant cost there in terms of, visas and just even on the ground relocation support with getting that person in. But that's where I think you can start to look at development opportunities and long-term career growth as well. So if you are looking at graduates or sort of recently graduated engineers, maybe they don't have the exposure to the Australian market, but to your point, they can do the design work. We could, harness that, bring them in and give them the exposure that they need. So yeah, look, very hot topic. I think there's a lot more that can be done in that space. It's early days, but it does, you look at trying to recruit locally, there's costs involved with that versus, immigration costs. By the time you weigh up the difference in cost, you're actually not that much out of pocket, really. So yeah, it does give another option.
It's absolutely true. And the next thing that I would have as a collective, potentially, and maybe something for the team, because obviously you guys all have lots of exposure in different industries individually in different organizations. And now we're in a domain where our renewable energy organizations are locally somewhere between 50 and 100 strong, potentially, or 100 to 150 strong, as opposed to picking up graduates for a Hollands in the infrastructure space where they've got an established graduate program. Large tier one contractors can pull in, however many dozen engineers in one city at a time from your RMITs, from your Swinburne universities, as opposed to our organizations where you can really only justify hiring 2 or 3. Has anyone got any ideas when it comes to growing that talent as well in-house, in addition to the international mobility piece, whether it's into Australia or out of Australia to get exposure to other industries? Do you think we're doing enough, guys, as a collective to actually grow that talent in-house and cultivate it amongst our teams? Is that something that we're seeing enough of maybe on the developer side or on the renewables OEM side?
I think it's mixed, depending on the organization and the level of maturity. I think we're going to have real trouble trying to get enough people to be able to deliver the volume of work that we need to be able to deliver.
It's good for people in my industry, that's for sure. Bad for everybody else.
We're trying to approach it a little bit differently. Like we offer some scholarships and as part of that, right, it's paid internships. So, like we get undergrads who've got enough knowledge about like the key things to get in there, get some experience with understanding how projects get developed, how design management gets done. Just really core parts of pulling a project together and getting it to the stage where you can go out there and start putting things in the ground. So that's one way we're approaching it. It's going to be a sticky one.
But I think the other half of the equation is the blue collar workforce as well. So I think I think from a developer point of view, it's all mostly white collar. But I think when it comes from a delivery point of view, from organizations like mine, it's we are scared about the blue collar workforce as well, which is not there. So you're talking about, and I think there are two kinds, right? So skilled and unskilled, and then skill within skill. You need all your technicians and crane operators and all of that. The numbers that you need, and then from unskilled point of view, your cable pullers, your terminators, and all of that. So I think those numbers are also very high when you put together all the projects that are in the development pipeline, or from a delivery point of view, even on the committed projects that we have from the ISP, the workforce that we need is massive. And then obviously projects like and then we have reses on the top of that as well. So it's a big number. And obviously from us is as an organization, we try to work very close together with organizations like TAFE and others and RTOs to address the issue. But I think then we have to at some point of time we have to then attract the talent from other industries. Right now attracting the talent from mining is obviously not economically viable, but so at some point we have to, and how as an industry we can address that as a problem, because at one point we want the projects to go ahead and achieve financial close, but at the same time most of the time it's a competitive process. So once it becomes a competitive process, then everyone look at the bottom line, and then everyone looks at like how much I have or what's Merinda's budget. So it's a catch-22.
Genuinely scared when you look at all the different project streams that are happening, right? Like you're talking about reses, you're talking about projects that are committed in the ISP. And then you're probably going to have other things like some life extension at thermal plants that's going to need to be done. And you're competing with others that are trying to enter the market and are willing to put the hand in the pocket a bit more. It's tough. I don't think we're going to have enough people.
Is it realistic then to potentially be looking at, like, from what everybody can gather, I mean, none of us in this conversation are sitting in a blue collar position as it stands right now. But potentially, from Mr. Gifford having been in that position, do we think it's realistic for organisations to be talking about bringing in international labour in those blue collar capacities? Because I have heard that in multiple conversations over the past few weeks, and I've heard it especially for transmission distribution projects.
Yep.
Is that something that's realistic?
Look, when I was at SA Power Networks back in the day, they brought in people from Philippines, Zimbabwe, a lot of other countries, and yeah, there was a period of adjustment, and it was a surprise that they were recruiting internationally rather than locally. But when you're in a spot where you need to do the work and you don't have enough people, you need to explore non-traditional avenues, right? It's going to have to. We've got a lot of work to do, and the time period in which to get it done is pretty fixed, let alone to build any additional generational transmission capacity we need. I think you're going to see it, quite a lot of it. And it's going to get a few people upset.
And then it becomes a game of making sure that we can get them into our organizations, and again, attracting them in with those intangibles that we were talking about.
John, the thing that I'm most interested in is people who are in Merinda's position, like the volume of CVs you need to sift, like the number of people you need to talk to, right? Like it's a massive increase in the amount of work that needs to be done.
And it's quite hard to find, you call it the unicorn that you need to find. Lots of people have great experience, and every project's different in every way, but every project's different. So what you need is precise. So it's very difficult to find the right person. But then you look at people that have got comparable skills, right? And if they've done the work in a different technology or in a different project setup, can those skills translate to what we need? And sometimes they can, and sometimes people are really happy to jump on board with that opportunity and transfer across. So to watch this space. I think we've got a couple of years to really sort ourselves out before the pressure's on, hopefully.
Absolutely, and it comes from conversations like this where we're able to collaborate from people in the industry who are, I would call you guys experts in your particular disciplines. You're all friends of mine and contacts of mine in the game. But having these types of conversations and forecasting the kinds of issues that we're going to have is going to enable these organizations, your organizations, to succeed in that domain. A sort of parting question on this topic, something that I've seen. I've found transport infrastructure and white collar staff, particularly the engineers, project control staff, those types of staff in those industries with those types of project backgrounds being the most applicable to the renewable energy domain because of the electrical scopes of work, because of the way that those projects are constructed, particularly rail people. Are we able to say there is a blanket industry where they come over and they're the most effective, or is it discipline specific and it's not fair to just say, no, mining and oil and gas aren't necessarily as relevant? What are our thoughts? Is there a blanket industry that translates over where we should be taking these staff from for the energy transition?
I think
you sound like a headhunter.
I do, actually. I might be.
I think there was a very interesting report, some industry sort of forum, where they have projected what transport projects are coming and then what major energy projects are coming. They're kind of overlapping at this point in time. And Victoria is just going through the big build, and I think New South Wales, especially from rail's point of view, and I think there's another wave of major projects coming, in terms of inland rail and a few other big opportunities. And then you have the Olympics in that's not too far away, and a lot of infrastructure is required from that sort of angle as well. So I think when you map all these opportunities, I think they overlap. That's my personal view. And unless, obviously 1 or 2 years here and there till you reach the FID on whether it's rail or transport or energy, but it's not going away for 5 years. That gives the time to achieve the energy transition, and then let's go back to transport. That's not happening.
Adam, any thoughts on that in particular? Anything when it comes to Manjeet's comments on the overlapping nature of those projects and the fact that we'll actually probably struggle. That's my interpretation. I think you make a fair point, Manjeet. We will probably struggle when it comes to taking from other industries when they're going to have their relative booms, and there are industries that are inverse to each other. But maybe we should really be looking at the graduate piece. Maybe we should be looking at the immigration piece or home growing it ourselves from the university graduates that are coming out. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think we need to, right? Like when I look at blue collar, right, and tradies, you don't start out knowing everything and how to wire a switchboard perfectly or Lumia cable. It comes from experience, right? But you got to start somewhere. And back in the day, used to have cadetships, traineeships. It's less common these days. I think we need to have talent at all levels of experience and seniority. In terms of which industries to beg, borrow, and steal from, transport's good, mining's good, oil and gas is good, but I think ultimately it comes down to the disciplines, right? Mining electrical is very analogous to renewables. Transport design management practices are very analogous to renewables and energy projects, right? They've got thousands of drawings in complex deliverable packages. And you need people who are really competent with that level of sequencing of work. So I think that there's really good people in all pockets. It's a matter of what Merinda was talking about before about transferable skills. Right? You got to find that area where those skills overlap. And I think that's where you're going to find the gems.
Guys, this has been an absolute pleasure. We have concluded the time allotted to us, so I'm going to wrap it up there. Everyone's insights have been phenomenal. Thank you for your time on Spencer Ogden's first Soapbox podcast of 2025. I hope to see all three of you guys on another one sooner rather than later. But a pleasure. Thank you to Merinda for joining us from Stockholm. And have a good evening, everybody, and a good rest of the day to Merinda. But thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Nice chatting.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to Soapbox. If you've got thoughts or questions about today's episode, reach out to us via our website, spencer-ogden.com. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow Spencer Ogden on LinkedIn for updates, insights, and behind-the-scenes content. Founded in 2010, Spencer Ogden is a global recruitment leader in sustainability, natural resources, and infrastructure. With 12 offices worldwide and over 380 specialists, we connect top talent across the full energy value chain, from finance to design to operations. Powered by our purpose of creating careers to power a sustainable future, we've spent 15 years building deep partnerships with clients and candidates to help drive the energy transition forward. We'll see you next time on Soapbox.